evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our podcast, Beneath Your Skin. The world is still crazy. This is still Gaia, with a little bit of freedom more than last time, but not much. And how are you doing, my dear?
I'm doing all right. It's still locked down here in the UK, although I did go to work, so I got my one shift a month at the school. So, it was nice to be somewhere different. It's much nicer podcasting than watching movies.
Today, we are going to talk about the British movie called The Quiet Ones, loosely based on a true story that didn't happen in UK, but it happened in Canada, in Toronto, and has basically nothing to do with what happened in the movie. But hey, if people are happy saying that is loosely based on a true fact, who am I to judge them? The movie is very good. It has some weak points. It has some plot holes, but all in all, is a watchable movie. It's very British, so don't think about all the Hollywood mainstream special effect and all the things that we have learned to hate in horror movies. This one has a complicated story, and it holds up pretty well. Even if I don't understand how is more believable that a person can have telekinetic powers when they are mentally ill, and how is this more logical than being possessed by demons. Basically, this is the main theme of this movie. A psychiatrist is trying to prove that mental illness can be cured if the person who is sick can create a fictional character on which they can throw all the negative emotions, all the bad feelings, so that they can be eradicated from the person like a cancer and destroyed by destroying the fictional character they created. Well, what can I say? I am not too sure this is the way you want to go to cure mental illness, but the cast was very good. The psychiatrist was amazing. You understand since the beginning that this man has so many secrets to hide, and he is manipulative. He's an evil bastard, basically. But you really like him. Even because at the beginning, the main character, Brian, he doesn't have a spine to talk about. He can't even answer a direct question because he doesn't know anything about himself. But since that scene, we can see how Joseph, the psychiatrist, already knows where to hit to hurt him and how to manipulate him. They just needed to speak for a couple of minutes, and Joseph knew already everything that there was to know about Brian. And even Brian doesn't know anything about himself. That was a very good starting point. What I have to say is that this movie will leave a bitter aftertaste in your mouth, because we are in the 70s when psychiatry was more or less pure torture and little science behind it. And watching movies based on the 70s, watching how electroshock therapy was used, watching how the patient was treated, I now understand why even nowadays people don't trust psychiatry and psychiatrists. Because really, if that was the way things were done in the 70s, when the control was very loose, and basically the psychiatrist and the hospital itself would gain control over your life the moment you were admitted in a mental facility, yeah, I can understand why people don't trust them. Even because really, even if we take out all the supernatural stuff in this movie and only leave psychiatrist aspect of the movie, we could have an horror movie. It will leave you with this bad sensation of people taking away your freedom, taking away the air from your lungs. You will be anxious. And it's not like something really happens in the movie, but it's just the atmosphere, the way it was filmed, the way it was acted and directed. That's enough. That's simply enough to give you these bad feelings that won't leave you alone once the movie will end. So I think they knew what they were doing and they did it well.
Yes, no, I like this film. This is one that I saw in the cinema, but it didn't get a lot of press at the time, so it was a very quiet like screening. And I think it wasn't the big mainstream like Hollywood horror. It was a quiet British one, so not many people saw it in the cinema, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, I love Jared Harris, who plays Joseph the psychiatrist. I love him. I think he's a fantastic actor, and he carries such a presence with him. He's just so present and he's so interesting, and the acting is really good, and it makes such a difference when you're watching a horror film where it's so believable that these people are these people. Like, it's like, yes, this is so crafted. And I love British cinema because it's a well crafted drama. A lot of this, you could take out the horror and you have a drama about relationships, like manipulating the system, about an experiment, because this is not like, this is an experiment. She's a guinea pig. The poor girl in this is a guinea pig serving this man's ego, and it's about him trying to like prove something because he's actually more unhinged than she is, I think. And it's that lovely idea of like, well, what's actually the biggest monster in this? Is it the psychiatrist, or is it this potential demon, or is it the mental health issues? And it's like, at the moment, of all of them, the psychiatrist is the bigger demon in this, the biggest monster. It's very like, once by the time they get to the house of the experiment, it's claustrophobic. Everything is filmed in tight spaces, which is something that comes a lot from British drama and the realist movement, where you get a lot of like family dramas and about the kind of breakdown of family units, and they're always filmed in tight places to show like how tense and unease the family are because they're always trapped together. So it's filmed like British drama, and that kind of use of tight spaces shots. And then when things are meant to be happy and relaxed, you immediately have a garden shot, so it's kind of like at there, and then the juxtaposition of someone lost, and in the background someone like the happiness going on, and then you get back into the house and it all becomes claustrophobic and tight and tense. I love the fact that it takes ages for the supernatural to actually come into this, yet at the same time it fills you with this creeping sense of dread, because you don't know if it's going to be a supernatural entity or a demon or anything. You don't know if there's like ghosts or anything paranormal. You're just like waiting for something to happen, but it just feels unnatural because you feel like you're watching a young girl being tortured. You feel like you're just serving one guy's like ego trip, and then when something supernatural does happen, you kind of question it, and the fact they still give you answers to it. Like, you see something that you think, well, that's gotta be supernatural, that ectoplasm thing is evil, demonic, there's something in there, and they're like, no, they've got a scientific term for it, it's the manifestation of it. And I'm like, I don't know if you could call that a scientific fact. I don't think people are meant to manifest their psychotropic experiences as weird internal scary goo stuff, and it's just like, and there's none of the shaky cam, there's not really objects flying around the room, and there's no special effects in it apart from one scene, and even then it's so quick that you like blink and you're like, did I just see that? But at the same time you're getting more and more unnerved, and you're getting more unnerved by the relationships between these people, because as it develops the drama, you're like, this guy's creepy and he's got creepy relationships with these young girls, and everything unsettles you. The actual reality is more unsettling than anything else. The reality of this experiment, the reality of their relationships, the reality of the abuse, the the twist at the end, I was like, I did not see that coming. Holy moly, God, this guy, no wonder she lost the plot. This guy is evil. Like, just truly evil. But that was so, like, so good. And then it's got this little supernatural thing, and you're like, and then it kind of throws in, like, yeah, there's a cult involved and stuff. But it's not really about the supernatural horror. It's about the evil of man against man and misunderstanding what mental health is and demonizing mental health. And yeah, and not recognizing when someone has clearly got his own mental health problems. It's a very interesting kind of drama.
Yeah, and I love how the psychiatrist basically totally missed the point because he wants to destroy Evie. But Evie is the true person inside Jane. So basically, we could talk about an extreme case of split personality. That is something that concern mental illness, and a psychiatrist should be able to understand that, but he totally ignore it. He wants to destroy Evie because if Evie is the real person, Evie is also the one who could be in control, but he cannot allow Evie to be in control because he wants Jane. But Jane is something that was created after she loses her memories of the traumatic past she survived. He fails totally in his role of a doctor. And there is that scene after the mark appears on her. She is lying down the mattress on the floor, and he is there with her on his knees, and he just touches her shoulders in what could have been seen as a comforting gesture. But it gives you such bad vibes because you know there is something twisted in the way he's touching her, something twisted in the way he wants her. That was beautifully done. It's not taken to the extreme. It's just a scene, a man on his knees with this young girl by him, and that was enough to give you the clear picture of what he wants. But that's not even the worst. At the beginning, we find out he had a very bad case at the beginning of his career. This young boy, then we find out he lied about, so he's not living a somehow normal life because he committed suicide. So he basically killed himself in a mental institution, but that's not the worst part. The worst part was that we find out he totally missed the ethic that is demanded from a man in his position, because that was his son. And no doctor, no psychiatrist should ever be allowed to cure his own son. He is so lost in following the dream of his own greatness. He needs to be God. And he sees a parallel between Brian and his son, because we find out that the boy's mother was Catholic. She was deeply into religion, and she was the one who stopped the sessions between him and the boy. And then at the beginning of the movie, we find out that Brian's mom is a religious woman, but the father is a banker. So we can figure out by his answer that the father doesn't believe in anything, exactly like the doctor. So I like the parallel. And for a moment, I really think, at least at the beginning, before madness overpowered the logic of his mind, he saw in Brian another opportunity to have a normal son, a son he can forge into his own imaging, exactly like God is supposed to have done with humanity. What I really think was a waste of time, of precious time during the movie development, is Chrissy's character. Chrissy probably was created to be this independent woman in the 70s, discovering her own power, her own personality, But in the end, if that wanted to be an exercise in women power, it failed because she is so very sure of herself. She is even bitchy with Harry, who is supposed to be her boyfriend, when Harry claims he loves her, and she's like, "Oh no, you ruined the mood with your trees with words." But when Joseph, who is very manipulative and who is begins to play with her to bring her deeper on his side, she totally falls for his plays and his games, and she doesn't even realize that she's doing exactly that. And then out of nowhere, she begins to be jealous of Jane. Jane is barely out of childhood. She is a young girl. Chrissy is a young woman. So even the idea of being jealous of someone who is being tortured and who doesn't even have freedom to walk away from all that madness, no, there is something wrong in that character. I can understand, I can see for what she was created, but they missed the point with her. And Harry is basically useless.
He's just kind of there.
But it could have been anyone else. Harry, Joe,
Yeah, could have been anyone.
Ivan, even because one thing I liked in this movie is that even if just for a second, and if you blink, you miss it, they, when they take a picture of Evie with the X-ray machines and all that jets, and they say it's Soviet technology. We shouldn't forget that in the 70s, in the Soviet Union, many experiments were being done to create those mythical supernatural soldiers that would be able not to sleep, not to eat, and basically they tortured people to death before those kind of experiments were shut down because human rights and stuff like that. But yeah, I like that they remembered.
No, it's well researched. It's got the setting right. It's got the claustrophobia right. It's got some very good performances. I think it slows down in the middle. I do think the editing and the pacing lose it in the middle. It's like strong beginning, strong ending. Because I mean, I love things where they fully investigate. And what I like about this one is they're investigating it not being a haunting. This is not a paranormal investigation. They did not set out to disprove the paranormal and to manifest like psychological damage and trauma, and it's like, oh my goodness. But the thing is, all that screams to me is like, if you take people's like personal demons and their trauma and manifest it, you're just going to make a demon. That's just like, because like that's just like Japanese mythology, in which if you die in horrendous ways, like it imprints onto objects. That's how you get cursed objects, and that's how you get things turning into evil entities. It's not necessarily your soul trapped, it's negative energy. And they believe that negative energy can turn into evil curses and evil demons and stuff. So it's like, you are just literally here showing us how to make a demon. You are going to bring whatever end is going to happen to yourself because you have manifested evil and you have made evil and you have acknowledged it and you have become evil. So you kind of like, this is, but I like the fact that they did it with such like, and this is test results and this is experimentation, this is psychology. So I liked how it started off and how it worked. But then in the middle, it did a little bit too much like relationship building and I'm like, I want to know about the investigation. I want to know if this is paranormal or not. I want to know what it is because I'm pretty sure there's something supernatural in there. I want to know more of the backstory. And when they finally did like introduce some of the cult stuff, it's kind of like one scene of exposition of like, I've done some research, I found out who Evie is, I found out about the cult, the end. And I'm like, but you spent ages like setting up, like, so she's like sleeping with him, but now they're having an affair. He likes her. He might be a bit of a predator to her. She's jealous of him. He's jealous of him. And it's like, okay, okay. I know this is a British drama and we like drama. But I think they could have spent less time on that. Like, they could have just tidied it up with a few key scenes. And I think they spent too long developing the weird, like, romance between, like, Jane and Brian. It's like, okay, we get it. We've already, like, established that they're feeling a connection. And I mean, some of it was beautiful. The bit by the lake was beautiful, and the fact that he changes the camera into soft focus, and you see her as a beautiful girl, separate from everything that's happened to her. And you're like, that's the girl she could be if this wasn't happening to her. That was you only really needed that moment because it spoke volumes. It's no dialogue, it's just a shot through a lens. It's her captured in this naturally beautiful setting. And then it juxtaposed when they put her straight back in the house, and all of a sudden her lovely wavy hair is just straight and damp, and it's just like, and she's looking so much paler, and she's just looking like a scared child again. So that scenes like that are just clever, but they spent too long doing weird relationship building, and I'm like, no, I've got this. I've got this. I want more investigation. I want a bit more history. But then when the ending happens and it's also shocking, like finding out the twist, and it's like when you get the revelation that it's like, oh my god, you experimented on your son. Was he even ill to begin with, or did you make it all up? Because, yeah, you are just totally just playing God, and you've sent yourself a bit crazy. And you literally, like, tortured your own son to death until he committed suicide, and now you're trying to remake this experiment to prove you're not crazy, or to prove, like, yeah, that you can be God. It's like, you can't be God. You can't treat mental illness like that. And yeah, and then yeah, by the time like some of the deaths started happening, you're just like, whoo, whoo, because it's played so realistically that the minute you see someone like, flying up, you're just like, oh, that's so unnatural. This film wasn't that scary, and now suddenly I'm like, this is really unnatural. And it's like, yeah, the ending is strong, and then kind of
Yeah.
heartbreaking because it's not a happy ending.
I loved how Brian is totally different in the last scene. We learn to know an healthy and happy boy who was falling in love, perhaps a little bit too fast, with this poor, tortured soul. And then in the end, he was totally different. You could see the madness coming out of him. And also, was it just madness, or there was something else coming out of him before he makes the chuck
Yeah,
noise and the screen fade to black?
yeah,
That was a very good ending.
yeah. I do. I love these kind of endings. It beats all those, and everyone's happy and hugging and moves on with their life. And I'm like, you would never recover from these experiences. You would need therapy for the rest of your life. You would be very like anxious people. You would be very paranoid about everything. You would be paranoid about getting repossessed all the time. You'd be paranoid about your house and who used to live there before you. So it's like these happy endings that these movies have. You're like, no, that's not how it works. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I always happy when it kind of like gives us a slightly darker ending and a slightly more realistic ending.
I totally agree, and I love this kind of ending. Even if deep down I am a romantic person, so sometimes I just get very sad because of this ending. But nothing makes me sad and heartbroken like Indonesian movies that someone didn't warn me about. Yes, I'm talking about you.
I'm
Yes, you.
sorry, I thought you were used to Asian cinema and you knew that like someone always dies. They have to have a sacrifice. You can't have
Yeah,
an
but I always twist things so that I can convince myself that was an happy ending. I mean, I find the happy ending in Dark Water. So you can see how twisted I am. But I couldn't find an happy ending in The Third Eye.
No.
Come on, I wasn't ready for that.
Oh,
So,
no, that was
yeah, I'm
sad.
still heartbroken. Yeah.
Oh,
And silly me, of course, I watched the trailer for the Third Eye 2.
Oh no.
And of course, I know what's going to happen, at least at the beginning, in like, this is happening before the movie. So I am like, really?
Oh no, no, spoilers, no! Must not go into these as
Exactly.
spoilers.
Exactly, but I won't spoil you.
Good, good.
I will wait for your heart to be broken. So
Oh no.
now it's your
Oh,
turn. Yeah.
yes, it'll be interesting to see which film breaks my heart. I feel like I must be a really cold person because, like, the ones with happy endings, I'm too happy. The ones with bad endings, I'm like, I feel good now. And and I'm like, and then if someone dies, I'm like, I accept that. That's just part of the genre. So I'm like, oh goodness, what's gonna actually make me go? I don't like it. I'm sad.
You are evil. We now know the truth. You are evil.
I am.
Okay. If Zoe doesn't have anything else to say about this movie,
No, I don't think so. I think I've covered my main points.
then thank you for listening, people. And if you want to join us, you can find us on Spotify, Beneath Your Skin, on Pintcast, Beneath Your Skin. We have a Twitter account at beneath_your, or a Facebook page. So if you want to talk to us, we will be there. Thank you and bye bye.
As always, it's a pleasure. I'm really glad you enjoyed this film, Gaia. I hope people go and watch the film, enjoy it, and then come and listen to our episode and share any thoughts and feelings you have as well. But for now, byes.